My girlfriend of 3 years is the kind of person that is scared of everything. Darkness, scary movies, clowns. I am always reminded of Courage the Cowardly Dog, but without the courage. So when she called me crying last week, I brushed it off as another silly little spook. Her dad came here to the States after a nasty divorce from an abusive mother and returns back to Europe each summer to visit family and friends, sometimes leaving her home alone to take care of the overactive Chuck. A little brown pup that resembles a woodchuck. I've never seen one, so I take their word for it, hence the name. They live in a town home with a small backyard, half of which is a wooden deck that steps down to concrete. It was here where the dog first acted strange, growling and making a racket. Over the phone she tells me how she's woken up by Chuck every morning around 4 to feed him. After that she lets him outside to pee and makes some breakfast. She tells me that a few minutes after letting him out, she hears growling and goes outside to check. This is where I had rolled my eyes. She freezes and looks up to barely make out what looks like a head in the dark morning air, humming like a bee and darting from one corner of the small yard to the other just a few feet above and in front of her face. At this point Chuck had ran between her legs and she grabbed him, sprinting inside. I am used to hearing her tell me about how she thought she saw this or thought she felt that many times before, but I had never heard anything where she actually had seen something. Now, me being one who doesn't believe in ghosts and the like, I did my best to try and calm her down, showing her pictures of those remote control helicopters people fly around, and explained to her how it was probably just someone pulling a prank or being a creep. She wasn't listening, but it did help and she was far more stable as the sun had come out. That was that. Now that brings us to tonight. It was a first 4th of July together as she had gone with her dad for the past summers, so I had gone over after breakfast to do the usual and head out with friends for the day. Usually Chuck was right there at the door jumping all over me and running with excitement all over the house. But not today. I asked her where Chuck was and she said he had been playing in the back since the morning. I took a quick peek and saw that he was just standing there with his head low to the ground, shoved right into the corner of the house on the wood deck. I called for him a few times before he brought it up and realized who was there. Then he was back to his usual self. "Is he all right?" I had asked. She looked puzzled. "Yeah, he's fine. Why?" I just brushed it off and joked. He just wasn't there at the door today. We went about our business, had some time to kill, and watched a recording of Stay on HBO or something before we headed out for the day. I was slightly distracted the whole way through by Chuck scratching the wooden deck as the couch we laid on was a wall away from the backyard. When it was over, I called Chuck inside. The next thing I heard was the familiar thump of a puppy running down the stairs. We saw fireworks and said goodbye to our friends rather quick since we can't leave that dog alone for too long without it tearing up the carpet. We got back to her place around 10 and Chuck was at the back sliding door scratching his dog, a door we had closed on the way out. "Hey, can you let her out? I got pee too," she'd said lightly. I told her okay as she closed the door to the bathroom and I opened the door to the yard. Immediately that dog went straight to the same corner it had stood at this morning. I waited and had a smoke in the dark. I stared at that goddamn thing the whole cigarette and it had not moved a muscle. I let the butt fall from my hand, meaning to step it out but it fell through the small gap in the deck. Shit. I still don't know why I crouched. It just happened. Next thing I know Chuck shoves his face right under mine, startling me and sniffing like a goddamn bomb dog. Then he started fucking growling in the creepiest way. I heard him growl at other dogs, but even that sounded playful. I can't even describe how it sounded like. I just knew in my gut something was up. My first thought was some rodent under the boards. It wasn't a rat. Chuck started backing towards the house and I heard the humming. It was like a ton of bees, but a more fat and humming sound. Periodically there was some rustling of dirt and a little rumble from Chuck. I, however, was frozen. BAM. The board right where I had stood smoking was slammed by that fucking thing below. Chuck started barking and backing his flapping door and into the house. That made the thing pissed and it smacked more boards closer to the house before I heard it thump on the part of the house under the deck. At this point I realized it was between me and the house, and I did not want to be on this deck anymore. I started stepping down to the concrete and the thumping stopped. At this point I realized the only light was from the house, and I was standing in darkness. BAM. I jumped and tripped, falling right on my ass as that thing pounded away at the steps. It wanted to get the fuck out. The adrenaline was pumping and I could not think of anything but back away, back away, back away. Until I felt the wooden fence at my back and saw the steps cracking and splintering a few feet in front of me. BAM. Another, and now I hear the humming. BAM. This one breaks a panel on the back of the steps in another place, angling it out a little. BAM. Finally it's opened enough space to shove fingers out. But those aren't fingers. It pushed the loose board open with a pop and a crack, revealing a black hole for it to crawl right through. Those fingers? They were its legs. Small and skinny like a spider's, but I could tell even in the little light that they were more fleshy and bony. It moved methodically and carefully, with a sort of stubble covering its body that I swear vibrated the air. I knew it saw me, but I could still not see its eyes or face. With every step of its long legs it got closer and I could feel my hands go numb and the blood rush from my face. It started clicking. If you ever heard a woodpecker, it sounded like that and shook a little for each click. I keep comparing this thing to other animals because it didn't seem like it was from this world. It didn't belong here. It belonged in some fucking story you tell your kids so they stay in bed. What happened next seemed like an eternity. It had crawled its way out and began to rear up, the clicking getting faster. For a second I swear it looked like a floating head, but then its legs spread out and open. I almost caught a glimpse of what you could call its face before it was silhouetted by the light from the house. As I recall this, I now realize how truly close this was to me at the time. If I extended my leg I could have touched the thing. The backyard light turned on and there was a scream. This snapped the thing back to its crawling state and it scrambled to get away from the light with terrifying speed. The sound of it scratching the concrete and clawing its way over the fence still makes me cringe as I type this. I was in shock and it took me a few seconds to realize that my girlfriend was there at the door sobbing and in hysterics. We both went inside and into a room with Chuck, locking every door and shutting every window to the house despite this heat. For a few hours we heard that clicking sound outside. At first only I noticed, but soon she did as it got louder. I looked out the blinds a few times but never saw anything. As I sit here typing this it's 3 a.m. My girlfriend and Chuck have fallen asleep, but I just can't get that image out of my head. I don't think I'll be sleeping at all. Now I'll always remember the 4th as the time I saw this thing. And it's out there. I have no idea where, but it is. It hates the light, so it will be most active at night. I'm posting this to warn others. Be careful. Listen for any clicking noises, quick tapping, or scuttling, and watch your pets. If they act strange, it could be around. I know this all sounds crazy, but please listen. I hope someone catches this thing soon.